This episode may contain stories of domestic violence. Please be advised. Welcome to the Sage Advice Podcast, where each week we sit down with people just like you who have left abusive relationships and found healing. Don't forget to check out our website, sage.community, because together we can survive abuse with grace and empathy. Now sit back and get comfortable. The Sage Advice Podcast starts right now. Hey guys, it's Erin. Welcome to this week's episode of the Sage Advice Podcast. It's just me today, and I wanted to tackle a topic that has been getting a little buzz on the Sage Community Facebook page. But the concept is love bombing. It's kind of a new term that has been floating around the internet. And the idea behind love bombing is that when you start a relationship with a narcissist or with an abuser, a lot of times you're going to feel the most loved that you've ever felt in your entire life. They send you flowers. I know my ex started bringing me flowers like date number 3 and paid for expensive dinners, took me to nice restaurants, planned this like elaborate birthday celebration for me. And it blew every guy that I've ever dated completely out of the water. And I felt so special and that it was the most amazing thing that anybody had ever done for me. He also, voluntarily did a bunch of work on my house and picked me up from the airport, cleaned my car when I was gone, fixed my windshield, just did everything that he could for me. And I thought I won the jackpot. I thought this was the best thing that ever happened to me. My friends' husbands wasn't doing that. They weren't going out of their way like that. All the stuff that he was doing actually made them step up a little bit, which I thought was kind of funny at the time. But when you're dating a narcissist, you don't know that at the time. You think that you're just the most special person that ever lived, and somebody is finally valuing you and seeing you, understanding you, and loving you. And that's an incredibly powerful feeling. I don't want anybody to think that love bombing isn't extremely powerful. And I think that's why people get so easily trapped in, not even easily. It's a lot of work on the abuser or the narcissist part to get you into this relationship. They're bending over backwards, but it's not the reality of who they are. And so when you're in it though, God, you feel so loved. You just feel so amazing. And that's how they get you. That's why you stick around. Because when things start to crumble and that facade starts to fade and you start to see a different person, somebody who is not nice, someone who puts you down instead of lifts you up, you always have that hope that they're going to go back to the original guy that you met, the original love bomber, right? And sometimes when they feel you pulling away, year, 2 years, 10 years down the road, whatever it may be, they'll bring that love bomber back, right? They'll all of a sudden start doing really nice things for you and showing, that Prince Charming knight on a white horse thing and make you think, maybe he's just going through a stressful time. This is the guy that I fell for. That guy's still here. If we can just get back to 90% of this Mr. Wonderful instead of, 20% or 10% or 5% or, 0%, which is usually the time that you're ready to get out of there. But, you just hold out this hope that it's going to go back to how amazing it was in the beginning. So hopefully that explained a little bit more about what love bombing is. What I'm worried about for our culture, for the younger generation, is that these stories of love bombing happen when you're dealing with a narcissist, right? But there are good guys out there. There are good girls out there. They do exist. And so at what point do we say like, oh, you're just love bombing me. Oh, this is just when really it's just somebody trying to be nice to you. When I went into my next relationship after, leaving my ex, thankfully I was with somebody who had also been in a very toxic, verbally abusive relationship. And so when we were nice to each other, both of us would get thrown off. Both of us would be like, what was that? Wait, are you going to flip out right now? Oh, you're genuinely a kind person. Wow. Okay. That's what this is like. And both of us were able to talk about it with each other. And, when one of us got triggered by genuinely nice behavior. I mean, how crazy is it that you can get triggered by someone being genuinely kind and nice to you? But when you've been deprived of that for so long, you don't know what it looks like. So I think it was good for both of us to date a kind person because kind people do exist. And so that's my fear for a lot of people who are leaving these horrible, toxic, abusive relationships is that they're not going to be able to trust the actual kind person. And I understand that. And it definitely takes time. It also takes the ability to trust yourself again. And that comes with time. That comes with working on yourself, of working with a counselor, of, working with the sage groups. That's what they're all about. It takes time to get there. I think, though, what concerned me was the people who have not been in that toxic relationship and who think that somebody just holding a door for them or, offering to pay for dinner is love bombing, and they shut people out because of that. That's a scary thing I hope doesn't happen. And so I wanted to make sure to bring it up when we're talking about love bombing because, doing something nice for somebody else and being romantic at the beginning of a relationship and trying to impress the person that you're dating and going to nice dinners and doing like fun and sweet activities, all of that is totally, totally normal and healthy in normal relationships. It's just normal. And so it's hard to think about, okay, where does that love bombing cross a line, right? And I think that's where you have to be honest with yourself going through it. If somebody is always going the extra mile, always putting themselves out there to do something for you, whether you've asked them to or not, and just doing too much, maybe it's time to question that. Actually, it's too much too soon. I read that somewhere and I talked to my counselor about that. It's the too much, too soon. You know, if you have been on 2 dates or been dating for 2 weeks, it isn't normal to have somebody do everything for you, plan elaborate trips, take you on fancy dinners, wine and dine you. You haven't known each other for that long. It's only been 2 weeks. So it's that too fast, too soon. And the reason it's that way, it's something that the narcissist or abuser is really good at, because the more in love with them they can make you, or those, immediate feelings of infatuation and having you tied to them, that just works in their favor further on. I had a lot of guilt thrown in my face of, well, I bought you this nice thing for your birthday. Oh, I did. I took you to this nice dinner. I bought you flowers. You're not good enough for me because I did those for you. So that's when that stuff obviously gets dangerous. But again, it all circles back to, how long have you been dating? Is this an appropriate action for the amount of time that you've been dating? I do think, for example, 3rd date, flowers, that is a nice gesture. That is a very sweet thing, normal amount of time. However, if someone's filling your apartment with flowers on the 3rd date, I would give that a little bit of a question. So again, it's when it seems too good to be true and it's Prince Charming, I would remember that. If it's too good to be true, might be too good to be true. So I know I've kind of gone a little bit. I'm just rolling off the top of my head today, but I had this come up in the group and I wanted to talk about it with all of you, because love bombing and that initial feeling is so strong, but I don't want it to do too much damage to people, because you deserve love. You deserve healthy love. You deserve a kind relationship with a good-hearted person, and that does exist. I'm single right now, but it does exist. I have hope that it does. And I know that it's scary. I know that it's really scary, not so much dating again, but getting into another toxic, abusive relationship. Because more often than not, it does happen again. That's a reality that we live in. I was talking with a friend of Eva's who's been on the show, and she wasn't ready to come on, but she wanted to talk to me over Zoom. And that was a message that she tried to get across, was that it can happen again. It did happen again to her. She was in a horrible marriage, ended in a very scary fashion. I won't go into too many details. He had since passed away. She was able to heal. She was able to work through a lot of things with her counselor, with her friends. She's a very strong woman, very independent, didn't need anybody, right? And a man came into her life. If I recall correctly, she wasn't that interested in him at first, but he was very persistent and seemed very kind and, did a lot of things for her to help her with her son and her life. And they had a friendship, and, she just felt really solid that she knew who he was and decided to move forward in the relationship. Then things started to seem off. couldn't put her finger on it. She just felt like things were off. And pretty quickly after that, she decided to end it. And now she and I talked, though, that she was beating herself up about how could I get into this relationship again. My point was, you got out of it. You saw something wasn't right. You allowed somebody in. Fine. Great. It's good that you allowed somebody in. But the second it felt like it was off, the second you saw patterns from previous relationship, you got out. You said I was done and I'm out. And then you worked on those emotions from this new relationship or this newer relationship. That's a totally normal thing to do. And she should be applauded for being able to see it, to not let it get so far, to get better. But all she felt was that she was beating herself up for getting into it in the first place. And I wanted to tell that story because we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. It could happen to me again. It could happen to you again. That's a scary, scary thought. But all we can do is take what we've learned, take how we've grown. And if something doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right. And we can hope that we can get out of it if it does happen as quickly as she did. So that's the hope. That's the goal. But, for anybody who's thinking about dating again and putting themselves out there, but who are gun shy because of previous love bombing that they've had and previous abusive relationships that they've had, totally understand. I think it's a common thing we all go through. I want to say that we all go through that. It's terrifying. It took me a long time to even want to give a crap about another dude. It was well over a year. And I didn't give one crap about dating. Not at all. So some people, it takes longer than that. I would advise not jumping into a relationship. That's never a good idea after an abusive one. That's probably a recipe for disaster. But, give yourself some time. Learn to trust yourself. Educate yourself. And then jump back out there. And if it happens again, hopefully, like this friend, you'll catch it sooner. It won't damage you the way the first relationship did or the second. And you'll be able to be strong enough to walk away. There are kind people out there. There are genuine people out there. Narcissists pretend to be genuine. They pretend to be kind to suck you in. But there are actually really kind people out there. Just take your time. I always think, you usually get a good sense of a relationship after 3 months. And an even better sense of a relationship after 6 months. So don't press yourself to know right away what your decision is. Keep a distance, play it safe, but put yourself out there and go find a good-hearted person. Because we all deserve love. Every person who is listening to this podcast right now, you are worthy of kind, true, beautiful love. And if you don't have it, don't settle for it. And if you're scared to find it, focus on yourself. Make yourself worthy of your own love. Learn to trust yourself again. And you'll know when you're ready to do it. But just take care of you first. But know that there are good-hearted people out there. And just because it happened to you once doesn't mean that it's going to happen to you again. So with that, I am going to sign off. But if you want to work through some of this stuff with the love bombing, sign up for the next round of the 30 days. We're going to keep them going. Look out on the website, sage.community, the 30-day transformation. And we'll work through some of this stuff together so you can go find the love of your life, right? That's the goal. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. And we will catch you next time on the Sage Advice Podcast. Bye. Well, that's our show. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions or if you're willing to share your story, please email us at sageadvicepodcast@gmail.com. Until next week, remember, when you're kind to yourself, the healing can begin. See you next time.
This show was brought to you by inflowradio.com, the best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.
If you or someone you love is in immediate danger, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. For more information, please see the resources tab at sage.community.